So welcome everyone. We are so grateful to have Jayadvaita Swami with us today. Just a little bit of a background. Jayadvaita Swami is a monk and a practitioner of Bhakti Yoga for over 50 years. So he has a wealth of experience to share with all of us. He is an editor, publisher, and author. And he wrote this amazing book, Vanity Karma. And this book won the Benjamin Franklin Gold Award for Best Book in the category of religion in 2016. Jayadvaita Swami also travels all around the world teaching and helping people with his profound insights. So we're very privileged to have him with us today for questions. Thank you so much for joining us, Maharaj. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaudavani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. There's a question that came up on another class that I'm doing online that I thought was thought-provoking. Someone asked, if a Krishna conscious person were in charge of the government, which meant the American government, because the class is in America, how would they deal with the coronavirus? You know, if there was a Krishna conscious king or chief executive, how would they deal with the coronavirus? I think there's a perception among many Americans that perhaps our American president is not the ideal role model for dealing with such a pandemic. But regardless of what we might think of him, how would a Krishna conscious person handle this? And I took a step back and thought that actually a Krishna conscious leader would have dealt earlier with the sources of such pandemics. Not just to be reactive and say, okay, we need more respirators, we need social distancing, we need lockdown, we need masks, but why are we being afflicted with pandemics? Why is this kind of mess upon us? Well, all right, partly it's because we're in the material world and there will always be something, but we're way out of whack as a society. We're way out of whack, and so we're getting whacked back. In a Krishna, you have a society that's based on unnecessary necessities, a false economy, exploitation of the land in horrendous ways, industrial strength animal killing, industrial strength illicit sex, industrial strength intoxication, and industrial strength gambling. These are like core industries. And how do we expect to have a peaceful and happy and healthy society in which nature is not going to retaliate for these things? It's not a realistic expectation. We're just like slapping nature in the face and saying, take that and take that and take that and take that, and don't give us any don't give us any reactions for this. Don't penalize us. Well, sorry, it doesn't work that way. This is not our playground to do anything and everything at the expense of anything and everyone. If we live this way, there'll be reactions. There's a video posted on Krishna.com by one vegan fellow pointing out that the coronavirus did begin at the so-called wet market, where all sorts of wet flesh is traded, and that viruses in general display a human-animal connection, that we raise animals for slaughter, and then we're surprised that viruses are coming upon us. So these were some thoughts that if you want to have a healthy, even a healthy population, what to speak of spiritually progressive, then you have to start by introducing principles of spiritual culture and driving out principles of degradation that now form practically the bedrock of our so-called civilization. That's a starting place. And for that, this distribution of the transcendental message of Krishna in the form of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam is essential. And just as the easiest and most approachable means for most people, this kirtan, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Kirtan can purify the whole atmosphere. Kaler dosha nidhe rajan asti eka mahanguna. Kirtana deva krishnasya mukta sangha param braje. This Kali Yuga is just like an ocean of faults, pandemics, and we haven't seen half of it. So many troubles are upon us in Kali Yuga. But the one good thing is that just by Krishna Kirtan, just by this chanting Hare Krishna, one can get free from all miseries and achieve the supreme destination. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That's my intro. Shall I deal with what you've sent me, Surabhi Kunj? If you're muted.
Sorry, I'm just going to ask, if anyone has a question, you can turn your microphone on and your video and ask Jayadvaita Swami directly. Or we can just go, if there's no questions, we'll just go through the ones we have currently.
Yeah, well, they're coming up. They're, the chat box is filling up with questions. So you can chat box your questions, or you can turn on your video and audio and just jump in. Okay, Bhaktin Havisha. How does one differentiate between having faith and being naive? Sometimes faith and innocence can be taken advantage of by fraudulent people. On the other hand, when we are exposed to something genuine, we may be so skeptical that we do not seem naive. Or on one side, we don't want to be naive, and on the other side, we become so skeptical that when the real thing comes along, we can't take it. Well, therefore, our books are there. Of course, if one is naive and somehow takes to the right thing, that's his good fortune. But one may be naive and get cheated also. So just to be innocent and accepting of everything is not the key. Therefore, we have so many books. A person who wants to be not skeptical, because skeptical becomes almost a religion in itself. It's like understood in advance that no amount of evidence will be sufficient, no answer will be satisfactory, nothing will be accepted. But discriminating, to use one's intelligence to evaluate, to consider carefully, with some elements, you could say, of skepticism, or let's call it discrimination. Then come to the books. We have so many books to speak to various philosophical issues, various doubts that we may have, various questions that we should raise. uh, that will be, and then consider. Krishna says, one who reads this book worships me by his intelligence. So just, this is the proper use of intelligence. Just hear Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and consider. And don't be naive about material life either. It's not that, we don't want to be naive about any spiritual process because we might get cheated. So we'll just carry on in material life and get cheated right, left, and center. If we're going to be skeptical, we should be skeptical across the board and be particularly skeptical of Maya's propositions, the happiness that you'll get by material advancement, by enjoyment of the senses. We should certainly be skeptical about that, especially given our universal experience that it doesn't really satisfy. Is that okay? Okay. What will be the main way to impress upon people what to do? That depends on the people, and that depends on the people and on you also. Some people will be impressed by kirtan. Some people will be impressed by the books. Most people will be impressed by prasadam. Some people will be impressed by the deities. So the Krishna is impressive, that is attractive. So present Krishna one way or another way. If someone wants philosophy, we have books. If someone wants a simple and easy process for spiritual advancement, we have chanting. If someone wants something still easier, we have prasadam. Everything is there. Now, and Prabhupada gave the example that when there's a fire in the house, then the residents somehow or other make themselves understood to the neighbors. The neighbors may speak a different language. They may be from a different culture or whatever, but somehow or other we get across the message that there's a fire and we need to do something. So that's our situation. The world is on fire. People are zooming toward death. And somehow or other, we have a message that we need to get across to them. So how you do that, you give it your best shot, following in the footsteps of the acharyas, and Krishna will inspire you, and you'll do something good.
Hi, Krishna.
Hi, Krishna. Who are you?
Hi, Krishna. This is Karuna Shakti. I'm in your call. I have a question about balancing, because you mentioned that there's so much of industry.
Whoa. Because we're on Zoom and it's not perfect audio. If you go slower, I'll hear better. Maybe my ears aren't so perfect either.
Now, you mentioned, we know that the meat industry has is a huge contributor to climate change.
Say that again. I'm really missing it.
Industry?
Karuna Shakti, we can't hear you very clearly with your audio, but your question is in the chat box. So maybe we should just read it because we can't hear you properly. It's the last question.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Okay. So my question was, we know that that the meat industry is the biggest contributor to climate change. But at the same time, there's a lot of backlash to the vegan industry because there are a lot of ethical concerns hidden that are not often talked about. So how do we find a balance where we have a non-violent lifestyle, but are also at the same time not creating other unintended negative effects on the earth?
Okay. The law of unintended consequences. I don't know the science, by the way, that the meat industry is having the greatest impact on climate change. Sounds reasonable. I don't know that it's so, but it sounds like it. likely. And vegan industries hide a lot of ethical issues. I suppose that means that they do things that also have a negative ecological impact, or some other kind of ethical problem. How do we find balance between a nonviolent diet and not having so many adverse effects on the earth? The real thing is that well, let me, before I say this, preface and say the real thing. Let me just think for a moment here. In the material world, we'll never find perfect balance. We'll never find the perfect diet. We'll never find the perfect anything. Everything in the material world will be infected or afflicted by some flaw, some discrepancy. Whatever we're trying to do, any good thing that you try to do, there'll be some problem that comes along with it. There'll be side effects and unintended consequences. That will always be there. And therefore, trying to find the right material balance will fail. It will be, there'll be better and worse. Certainly, there'll be abominable, and then there'll be pretty good. And then there'll be compromises that we have to make at this juncture or that juncture because of not having the money or not having this or not having that or whatever other reason. But our approach is not just an ethical diet, a nonviolent diet, an ecologically appropriate lifestyle. Our ultimate point is to be connected with Krishna. Otherwise, everything's useless. Your vegan diet, your small ecological footprint, your ahimsa, your whatever. Without a connection to the ultimate truth, all these things will be ultimately false. I'll be ethical, I'll be this, I'll be that, and I'll take birth again and continue through the cycle of 8,400,000 species, trying to exploit the resources of this world ethically or less ethically. My problem does not get solved. There's so many vegan, the meat industry is one issue. Then there's the liquor industry. Then there's the tobacco industry. Then there's the prostitution industry. Then there's the gambling industry and the casino industry. There's like no end to it. There's no end to it. So as soon as you solve problem A, there's problem B. Then deal with problem B, problem C comes along. Prabhupada talked about two methods of hammering metal. He said there's the goldsmith method and the blacksmith method. The goldsmith has a little hammer. He's going tick, 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 tick. And the blacksmith has a big hammer. He goes whomp. So Prabhupada said our method is the blacksmith method, by which he didn't mean that we're crude. He meant that we deal with all the problems at once. We're not just going to solve the global warming problem or the casino industry problem or the tobacco or liquor problem. We want to solve the birth and death problem. Be done with the problems altogether, not to say, well, how do we make this prison more suitable, a more ethical place or a more comfortable place or a better place to live. The real thing is how to get out of prison, not to be promoted from the third-class prison to the first-class prison, but how to get out of prison. So finally, that's our point, how to become Krishna conscious. And then if one is Krishna conscious, the discrepancies that inevitably come are, what's the word, of little consequence or of less consequence, because we're getting out anyway. We're not staying here. It doesn't mean we're what's the word, negligent or abusive of the environment, but it means that we know that we're never going to find the perfect solution, and that our energy should be put into the business of getting out. Just like now I'm in this room, you see there's this sort of gray background here and a little picture and whatever. And I could think, well, you know, for one night I was going to be here, it's no big deal. But now that I'm locked down here for, you know, who knows how long, 2 or 3 or months or more, well, I should get new wallpaper, and I should change the pictures, and maybe see what other kinds of better lighting would be nice. No, that's not my business. I didn't come here for a better sofa or better lighting or better pictures or wallpaper. I have some work to do. Speaking with you all and doing other things. So yeah, I can put a little attention to seeing that the picture is straight, or closing the curtains during the Zoom sessions. But I'm not going to dedicate myself to getting the wallpaper just right and getting this just right and that just right, because I'm not going to stay here anyway. That's not my real concern. So I give the necessary attention. We clean the room, we do things. But my focus is on my actual purpose in being here. So that should be our point, our purpose in being here. So the food that we get in the most suitable way that we can, from the best, most ethical sources, and we offer to Krishna. That's the point. Then there may be this discrepancy or that discrepancy, but everything becomes spiritualized because now it's connected with Krishna. And if everything is ultra organic, ultra first tier, but there's no Krishna consciousness, then it's all a waste of time. Is that all right?
Yes, Maharaj. Yes, that's all right. Thank you.
Okay. Then, yes. How to measure one's spiritual progress, and how does one know where one is on the bhakti ladder from faith, shraddha, to prema, love? Please, can you elaborate particularly on getting through anartha nivritti? Well, one anartha at a time, you know, they crop up. The examples given in Chaitanya Charitamrita, you're pouring water on the plant, and along with the plant that you want to grow, weeds come up. So we have to recognize those weeds and pull them up, pull them up, pull them up, pull them up. Those are the anarthas, pride, crookedness, and so many others that lodge within the heart of the conditioned soul. We want to pull them up one after another, one after another. And at the same time, continue with the watering, continue with the hearing and chanting, so that the plant will grow up strongly. That's the main thing. The hearing and chanting will purify everything. And at the same time that we're hearing and chanting and associating with the devotees, then what is that? Anartha pasamam sakshat bhakti yoga madhokshaje. By direct devotional service to Krishna, we'll gradually reach that stage, anartha upasamam, that the anarthas will be washed away. Prabhupada called this a gradual cleansing process. How can we know where we are? We see one special index, or one index especially pointed out, is detachment. Bhaktir parishanubhavo viraktir anyatra cha. The more that we see that we're becoming attached to Krishna, and the more that we see that we're becoming detached from Maya, the more we can understand that we're making advancement. Is that all right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Thank you. How come Hiranyakashipu did not attain any bit of self-realization with his severe austerity? The thing he did for that period of time should have given him some detachment to the body, just like the Ashtanga yoga practice. But he still had so much greed and anger, to name a few of his ignorant qualities. It's not that austerity automatically leads to spiritual realization. There's austerity in goodness, austerity in passion, austerity in ignorance. So when we perform austerity in especially ignorance, austerity directed at causing harm to others, at just getting some material power, austerity and passion and ignorance, that's what we'll get. There's one demon, Vrikasura, who was cutting off flesh from his body to offer in the sacrificial fire to Lord Shiva so that he could get a benediction that whosever head he touched would fall off. You know, what kind of madness? But even today, you have us scientists doing severe austerities, you know, working all hours and neglecting everything else to produce a new weapon, a new means of destruction. Or in the meat industry, again, they're doing scientific research to figure out how they can do this or do that. So they're undergoing tapasya, austerity, but they don't become Krishna conscious because their goal is not to become Krishna conscious. Their goal is sense gratification. The purpose of their austerity is sense gratification. The purpose of their charity, sense gratification. Purpose of their sacrifices, sense gratification. So they're not going to become Krishna conscious. Prahlad Maharaj says, what is that? Matirna Krishna Parito Svatova. What is that? Mito Vipadyeta Grihavratana. Because you're Grihavrata, because you've made a vow to enjoy this material world, you'll never understand Krishna. Neither by your own efforts, nor by attending conferences or discussing with others. Your attraction for Krishna will not arise because you're holding on for dear life to falsity. How will you realize the truth when you're holding on to falsity? In the Bhagavad Gita, mohad grihit vasagrahan pravartante shuchi vrataha. The ultra-materialists are grasping for that which doesn't exist. They're trying to hold on to that which has no real existence by the force of illusion. Mohad grihit vasa, asadgrahan. They're grasping onto something false. And pravartante ashuchi vrataha, and flourishing in nasty enterprises, nasty undertakings, nasty business. And how will they become Krishna conscious? It's not just by austerity. Naham Vedarna tapasa nadanena. What is that? 9th chapter. Let's see. Nadanena. Naham Vedarna tapasa nadanena nachejaya. Shakya evam vidham vidho drashvam drishtavan simamyata. The 11th chapter. The Lord told Arjuna I can't be understood by Vedic knowledge, by tapasya, austerity, by charity, by worship. I can't be understood. I can't be seen as I am that way. Bhaktya tvananyaya shakya aham evam vidvarjan. Gyatum drashtum chatatvena praveshtam chaprant. I can only be understood by pure devotional service. So Prahlad could understand the Lord and see the Lord by devotional service. And Hiranyakashipu, no. Okay, let's see what else is going on here. Okay, Bronwyn will turn on a microphone and we'll hear.
Yes. So I have two questions, if that's okay.
Yes, why not?
Okay, so the first refers to a verse in the Bhagavad Gita. So chapter 9, verse 32. And it says that women are of lower birth, while women merchants and workers. Perhaps you could elaborate on why women are referred to as being of lower birth.
Because they always get exploited.
Is that the answer?
Isn't it? Isn't it so? Women are always getting the short straw. They're always getting they're always running into the glass ceiling. They're always running into this, that, and then always there's always a movement or this or that. But it's always that way. That life will be more difficult in so many ways for women. They'll want to be equal, but it won't work that way. So that's one consideration. There are two ways of reading that verse, by the way. Shudra, Striya Sutra Tata Vaisha Tepi Yanti Param Gatim. One may be, you can read it that the Vaishyas and the Shudras and the women, they're the people who are of lower birth, or you can read it as a series. Lower birth people, Vaishyas, Shudras, women, it's all a list. Either way, it doesn't come out all that great for women. But tepi yanti param gatim. The real point is that everyone can achieve the supreme destination. So that I don't care if I'm a Vaishya or if I'm a Shudra or I'm a woman or I'm Papa Yoni, born of a sinful family. What's it to me if I achieve the same the supreme destination? That's the overriding consideration. Just as, the material advantages, this is the material world, everything's not equal. It's not that everyone has an equal start, an equal background, equal assets, equal intelligence, equal physical strength, equal. That's not the world we're in. The world we're in, everybody's dealt differently. Someone's stronger, someone's smarter, someone's better looking, someone's richer, someone's born in a better family, someone's, whatever it is. And then someone's uglier, someone's poorer, someone's less intelligent, someone's coming from a low family. So there's no equality. Forget equality. It's a myth on the material platform. So the question is not how do we achieve equality materially, but how do we manage inequality? Equality is not going to be achieved ever because there's differences. In the Soviet Union, they made everyone a comrade, but someone was the sweet sweeper comrade and someone was the professor comrade because people are different. Then where's the equality? The equality is on the spiritual platform. It's not even achieving equality, it's already there. Everyone is part of Krishna. On the spiritual platform, everyone is equal. There's no higher and lower spirit souls. So So that's our point, not to be sort of miffed that, hey, why is my group considered, lower? Wait a second, that's not fair, or to be puffed up, well, my group's higher. Forget it. It's all different brands of Maya, higher Maya, lower Maya. Tepi anti paramgatim. The point is that everyone can achieve Krishna. And if we don't move toward Krishna, then our whole life is a waste of time. I may have been rich, I may have been good looking, I may have been educated, I may have been coming from a great family. And if I don't become Krishna conscious, then my life is a failure. And whatever background I come from, if I become Krishna conscious, I can wave goodbye to everybody below and say, trumped you.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
My second question would be, yes, what would happen, because in Srila Prabhupada's book, he says that essentially your soul is found in your heart.
Yes.
So what would happen to your soul if someone had to undergo a heart transplant?
Oh, it's like when you pick up water in a sieve.
Okay.
The water is you can pick up a ball or something in a sieve, but you can't pick up water because it's too subtle. It'll just go right through the net. So you can pick up the heart, but and you can move it, but that doesn't mean that the soul will move with it, because the soul is more subtle.
Okay, so your soul is still in your body.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. There's a funny joke I could tell about that, but I don't think I tell it all that well, and time is at a premium. Okay, let's see. Want to see that my chat box is not knocking people out of the ring here. Okay. I'm wondering why in Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna is not mentioned by his name Krishna, but as the Lord or Sri Hari, but not Krishna. I don't read it in Srimad Bhagavatam. Go to first canto. Ete chamsa kalapamsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. There's a list of so many incarnations, and then it says some of these are partial incarnations, some are parts and parts of parts, but Krishna is the original supreme personality of Godhead. In many, many places throughout Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna, Krishna, Mahabaho, Bhaktanam, Abhayankara. So many places, to say that Krishna is not mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam is not right. You read on. Is that okay? Okay. Why does Krishna place devotees in difficult situations by giving them reversals, allowing them to commit sinful activities even after making spiritual commitments? How do we see Krishna's hand in the most difficult situations? There's a really excellent paper, a short paper, written by a devotee, Hari Parshada, that has been circulated a little bit lately, especially during the coronavirus outbreak, addressing precisely that question. If you don't have a copy of it, Rukmini can ask me for it, and I'll forward it. It's quite good and addressed right to this point. But it's Krishna's mercy to put us in difficulty. When devotees are put in difficulty, their glories come out more. There's a term, to be someone's foil. It's an old term. It's not current, I think. But the idea came from the idea of a button which appears on a, you know, a foil background. So when you have the foil, it brightens the button or whatever merchandise stands out because of the foil behind it. So the glories of the devotees really come out in difficult situations. Imagine Prabhupada came to America. Imagine if he'd come on a 747 business class, all expenses paid, landed in New York, was met by the elite of the city and ushered to a a high-class hotel, and then given everything everything he wanted by wealthy admirers, and there'd be no story. Instead, he comes on a steamship, and he nearly dies on the way, and then he's met in New York City by some guy from Traveler's Aid and brought to a inconspicuous house in the suburb from somebody that is the son of somebody he kind of knew. And then he just goes to New York City, and he lives in amidst in the Bowery, amidst the bums and the homeless. And then he starts a little center in this real cheap area, the Lower East Side, and everything goes on with so much struggle. So what's the result? That his glories come out. The Pandavas went through so much trouble. They were Krishna's devotees, and yet Bhima is poisoned, and Draupadi is insulted, and they're all invited to a house of lack, and then they go into exile, and then Kurukshetra, so many difficulties. But the result is that they become more and more, as Kunti says, and when all these things were happening, then you were always with us. Or we're always thinking of Krishna amidst difficulty. When things are rosy, then we just think about how rosy things are. But when we're in difficulty, then we become, what's the word, concentrated in Krishna consciousness. Yasyaham anugranami harishe tad dhanamshana. Krishna says, when I really favor a devotee, I take away all his money. And when he's poverty stricken, then his friends drop him, and he's miserable, and he tries to put his money together again, and I take it away again, till finally he says, all right, he surrenders to Krishna. And then he gets the real treasure of Krishna consciousness. So the devotee sees Krishna's kindness everywhere. The example is given that the material nature is like a cat. The cat carries the rat in its mouth, and the cat carries the kitten in its mouth. So for the rat, the jaws of the kitten are the jaws of death. But for the kitten, the jaws of the cat represent love and protection. So the devotee who's Krishna conscious is always under Krishna's protection and kindness. Is that all right? Let's see. Jyoti Kanta.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
We find, like, in this existential experience that we see many waves of turbulence, waves of exuberance. So I was wondering, like, how amidst these waves that come and go in very flickering moments, how do we remain equipoised, and how do we act beyond the constraints of the mind?
Chant Hare Krishna. That's it. Everything else, there's theory, there's philosophy. Finally, we chant Hare Krishna, and we come to the transcendental platform above these dualities. Is that too simple?
No, simple is always brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you. One thing we can easily observe in this age is the lack of time for anything. As Bhakti yogis, what are the practical ways you could recommend for making sure we put our spiritual practices in the forefront, especially around this lockdown period? Yes, there's not a lack of time. There's one Roman, I think it was Seneca, he said, life is amply long for one who orders it properly. Life is amply long for one who orders it properly. In other words, there's enough time for everything we need to do. So if we place Krishna consciousness in priority, so the first thing is when you get up in the morning, chant Hare Krishna, and our morning program, however you do it, whether you're tuned into some internet connection or you're chanting, sitting down peacefully in a corner and chanting Hare Krishna, reading. But that morning time especially is meant for sadhana, for spiritual cultivation. A simple thing is that I do, you may like to take this up, my computer is off till 9 in the morning. You have no idea what a difference that can make in your life. It's just off. And therefore, it's not a distraction. There's nothing that I need to answer or attend to. It's off. And since it's off, I can do everything else. I can concentrate on chanting, reading, hearing, all those spiritual things. So that's just a practical tip. The morning time is the most valuable time. First of all, that's the start. That sets you on your trajectory for the day. That's the most congenial time for spiritual practices, the most potent time. So start, where do you start? Start in the morning. And then from there, you can continue with your other activities. There's so many, we're trying to create opportunities through these Zoom sanghas, and especially, I think that's probably the main thing that's going on these days is Zoom sanghas. So look for those opportunities, how I can progress in Krishna consciousness, how I can use my time for Krishna service. And we see, and to, what is that? Krishna says, wherever the mind wanders because of its unsteady and fickle nature, bring it back. So the world is full of distractions. Try to reduce those distractions. That is, don't invite them into your world unnecessarily. The world is distracting enough. And use your saved time and saved mental energy for Krishna consciousness. Chant Hare Krishna, be engaged in practical activities in Krishna's service. You can set a goal. Now, some people work well with goals, and I've got in the next 3 weeks, I'm going to read this many pages. In the next 3 weeks, I'm going to write this many pages. In the next 3 weeks, I'm going to learn this many verses. Whatever it is that works for you like that, that's another approach. Some very structured and goal-oriented. There's lots of ways where, we're going to do some outreach program. We're going to call, 375 people over the next, 2 weeks, and, communicate some message, or just check in on them, see how they're doing, whether they have any spiritual need. And I'm going to think about how can we distribute books during this, use your mind, use your body, use your words for Krishna, and Krishna will help you. Is that okay, people? There's a lot, by the way, if you start looking, there's so much digital sangha going on from this side of New Jersey, that side of New Jersey, from London, from Dubai, all over the place. It's just name your time zone, name your available time slot, and something is going on online, and you can find it out. Okay, let's see. In Krishna consciousness, there seems to be always a distance between our position and pure love of Krishna. Pure love for Krishna is so rare. Will we be able to actually reach it? Yes. Prabhupada said in this lifetime, you can reach it. But to always feel that there's a distance, that's our advantageous position. If we think now I've achieved love of Krishna, my life is perfect, that will be difficult. But we should always feel that there's a distance between where we are and where we want to be. That will help us. How can I be more attentive and steady in my chanting? You can read Satchidananda Maharaj's book. It's really quite wonderful. The Living Name is a very good practical guide to these things. Starting with just practical things like, sitting up straight and being in a quiet place and avoiding distractions, just the physical setup, and then to the various things that we want to do, avoiding fences, concentrating on hearing and the sound of Krishna's holy name. There's a lot there. And finally, it's practice. Go on chanting, go on chanting, go on chanting, go on chanting. I was expressing to my friend Burijan Prabhu my frustration that my chanting is not what I'd like it to be. And he said that he commiserated and said, yeah, I had such a wicked mind and, so many, it's always going here and there. He said, but I consider that there's been some success if I can just hear one mantra, starting with Hare. If I can hear one mantra, I consider that there's something has been achieved. And after that mantra, there's of course the next mantra. It's not that you have to stop at one. But the mantra that you're chanting now, try to chant it with as much attention and devotion as you can. The ones that are gone, that's already done. But now, this mantra, let us try to chant sincerely and with full attention. In a world full of distractions, sometimes we may forget what it means to to concentrate or be present. How can one overcome that? Well, again, you don't want to be present for everything, by the way. You don't want to be aware of everything that's going on because it's awful and there's no benefit. But you want to be present with Krishna. You want to, concentrating on one thing means excluding other things. That's concentration. If you're trying to be aware of everything, then there's no concentration. Concentration means focus. Focus means some things are outside of my focus. So in a world full of distractions, so we try to minimize those distractions, eliminate them from our schedule, from our home, from our life, as far as possible. If you have a television, you can always throw it over the balcony. That's very helpful for spiritual life. And there's so many other things. You know that this thing is a distraction, that thing is a distraction. So then start to act with determination to reduce those distractions. That's the negative thing. And the positive thing is just by focusing on Krishna more and more and more. Krishna says, wherever the mind wanders because of its restless and unsteady nature, bring it back. So one mantra at a time, we're trying to chant Hare Krishna. And the more we chant Hare Krishna and continue chanting Hare Krishna, the more we become, the less we become diverted by distractions. Chanting Hare Krishna and serving Krishna, because we're not Haridas Thakur that will just sit and chant for 24 hours, but always be doing something for Krishna, chanting something, reading something, cooking something, accomplishing something, designing something, something practical. Both things, practical activity and sadhana or chanting and hearing. How can one develop namruchi, or the taste toward chanting? By constant chanting and by service. Syan mahat sevaya vipra punyatirtana sevanat. Shushusho shradhanasya vasudeva kataraji. By service to devotees, especially to exalted devotees, one develops that taste. Is it possible to follow bhakti if one belongs to another religion? Yes. Why? Krishna consciousness is not a religion, as in Christian, Hindu, Muslim, this, that. The soul is not eternally Hindu or eternally Christian, or eternally this or that. These are designations. But bhakti is the eternal engagement of the soul, to have love for Krishna, to be engaged in the service of Krishna. That's the eternal religion of every living being. It doesn't matter whether I'm Christian or Hindu or this or that. But this is bhakti. Sarvopadi vinirmuktam tat pratena nirmala. To get free from all these bodily designations. I'm this, I'm that. I'm old, I'm young, I'm thin, I'm fat, I'm white, I'm black, I'm this, I'm that. To come to the platform of pure consciousness and engage our senses in the service of Krishna's senses. That's bhakti, and that's for everyone, any religion. Radha Vinod has a question. She'd like to ask a live question.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
I would like to ask a question about Varna Ashram.
About which?
Varna Ashram.
Varnashram?
Yes, I was under the impression that while it can facilitate spiritual advancement, it's not necessary for spiritual advancement. But while reading The Science of Self-Realization recently, I've noticed that Srila Prabhupada has put a lot of emphasis on it. So I'm kind of struggling to understand the concept and why there is so much emphasis on it.
Life works better, spiritual life works better when our material life is well organized. Right now, everything is cuckoo. There's no sense of what I am or what I'm supposed to do, or it's bent out of shape. But the Varnashram system rationally organizes people's lives according to what stage of life they're in and what qualities they have. So if they have the qualities of a sage or the qualities of a philosopher, then don't engage them in sweeping the streets or trying to in becoming entrepreneurs, because they're of a different nature. Or if someone has an entrepreneurial nature, don't try to engage him in philosophy and all that kind of stuff. Engage him in a business, or engage him in something that'll turn a profit. If someone's a leader, don't try to make him a follower, make him a leader. So people have different characteristics, and society should be divided. So imagine if your body was all head, it just wouldn't work. Or if we were all arms, or if we were, arms, belly, and feet, but no head, that doesn't work. You need all the parts working properly. Then you get, a properly functioning body. So the social body is like that also. It needs some people to give it thought and vision. It needs some people to protect it and give it and manage it. It needs some people to feed it and it needs some people to help with all these things. So that's these are the varnas. And then ashram in different stages of our life, student life, then married life, then retired life, then renounced life. This is sensible also. Naturally, you want to start with student life. You don't do student life when you're like 60. That's for, you people your age or young people. Then there's married life. So that follows naturally. Then there's detachment, because you don't want to be, an old dog who's just attached to, sitting in his rocking chair and saying, Martha, do you remember back in, and having your, that's not the appropriate, because life is meant for spiritual realization. So at that stage, we want to focus more on detachment and on going back to Godhead, because we're going to leave soon. So this system is conducive. In the absence of Varnashram, we'll chant Hare Krishna anyway, and we'll carry on. But when things are well organized, it's easier.
Okay, thank you. I was also wondering what our role is in society and how we would apply this to our lives.
Well, especially our role is to give Krishna consciousness to others. That's the great need. And we may have whatever occupation, but that is especially the need of the day. Again, if the house is on fire, we don't say, well, I'm not going to communicate this to the neighbors because I'm a Brahmin. It's not my business to manage. Or this is a message and I'm a Kshatriya. Messages are for the Brahmins. Everybody just gets out there and does it. So that's the most important thing for all the devotees, is to cultivate Krishna consciousness and distribute Krishna consciousness. You may be Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, this, that, the other thing, but that's the most important thing.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Let's see. Oh, another thing, how can you develop Namruchi? Join in the Chuta Gopis Kirtan, right? And you'll get Namruchi. I heard someone saying, with reference of some Veda, that universe was not created by someone. It was always there, just like God. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that he created the universe. What's the actual truth about the creation of the universe? The actual truth is what Krishna said, not what you heard someone saying with reference to some Veda. That doesn't really cut it. No. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarva. Everything comes from Krishna. And that's also confirmed in the Vedas also. Ito va imani bhutani jayante. This is Vedic mantra. He from whom everything has been produced. Jayante, from whom everything comes. The universe, everything. So whoever you heard from doesn't really, you should read Bhagavad Gita. May we please have a 16-round japa session for the world and all its people? Sure, go ahead. Why 16? More. Okay. To ask questions about spiritual life is beneficial. Could you share some tips on how to cultivate this inquiring mood, please? Well, tips. I suppose by hearing, if you hear, then you'll have questions. If you're not hearing, there's nothing to ask about. Even Prabhupada said, I only ask my Guru Maharaj one question: how can I serve you? It's not that we have to have, some people have like millions of questions. We'll have to have millions of questions, or somehow or other I'm missing out. But if you hear, then you may either you'll have questions or you'll benefit from the questions that are already out there. Parikshit Maharaj is asking the best questions. So you don't necessarily have to, strain your brain to think up a new one. Well, Parikshit Maharaj asked this, what can I ask? You can just benefit by hearing his questions. What is that? Yat krita Krishna sam prashno in atma superseded. Varyane shate prashna. Kritam loka hitam nirpa. Atmavid samata pumsam shrota vyadi shruyapara. The Sukadev Goswami congratulated Parikshit Maharaj. Your question is glorious because it's beneficial for everyone. So we don't necessarily have to come up with new questions. If we have questions, that's all right. We can place them before our suitable people. But otherwise, I'll just hear the perfect questions. Prabhupada gave that, using that verse, Prabhupada titled one book, Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers. So, Munio Sadhu Prishto, Bhavadbir Lokamanga. So, when the perfect questions are there, you just hear them and hear the answers. That will be very good. How to minimize sleeping, maximize being awake. Be busy, always in Krishna's service, and enjoy serving Krishna. Do some service that you love doing so that you'll think that sleep is just a waste of time. I want to get up and look forward to the people who have nothing going on in their life. This is what they look forward to sleep. They get a weekend and they sleep 14 hours and they'll think this is so great. But those who are enjoying, who are involved in something, they look forward to getting up and being awake. So be enthusiastic in Krishna's service and in that way. There's so many digital sanghas, I'm not getting to read Srimad Bhagavatam. So what's more important? Well, you can attend a digital sangha where they're reading Srimad Bhagavatam. That will solve the problem. I'm sure there are many such sanghas.